Good morning, everyone. Buongiorno a tutti da Toronto. This first part of the webinar will be in Italian because we will be talking about our endeavors to illustrate the opportunities in the sector. But of course, the second part will be in English. So I'm switching now, begging for patience of our English-speaking friends. Di nuovo buongiorno a tutti, mi fa piacere di vedervi. È un gruppo che non è numerosissimo ma che comunque è sicuramente molto mirato e interessato al tema che vedremo oggi. Io sono il direttore dell'ICE in Canada, Marco Saladini, e insieme a Paolo Benzi vi do il benvenuto a questa occasione di approfondimento e anche di scoperta di alcune opportunità d'affari che diciamo ruotano intorno alle tecnologie ambientali, in particolare per le costruzioni sostenibili e per la gestione delle acque. Paolo, vai pure avanti, che diamo uno sguardo veloce al contesto, diciamo, dove ci troviamo. Ci troviamo in un paese enorme con tanto spazio anche per diciamo portare via, nascondere, diciamo, i rifiuti, e quello che appunto non si può riciclare immediatamente, ma che comunque ha delle necessità perché sta sviluppandosi in una maniera molto rapida, soprattutto intorno ai grandi centri urbani, ma anche in altre zone, quindi ci sono delle necessità importanti. Non so se riusciamo a far vedere la prossima slide, Paolo. Ok, eccoci qua, infatti stiamo raccontando della superficie enorme del Canada, con un numero di abitanti inferiore a quello dell'Italia e un tasso di crescita molto rapido. Come vedete, le province importanti, quelle che si conoscono, sono Ontario, Quebec e British Columbia, insieme all'Alberta, che è anche una zona che per altri versi ha bisogno di tecnologie ambientali perché c'è una forte presenza di industria mineraria. Ok, andiamo avanti e prossima slide per favore. Vediamo come c'è stato comunque un forte legame fra Italia e Canada anche dal punto di vista del commercio con l'estero e naturalmente qui parliamo di prodotti, poi noi invece faremo riferimento in questo ora di cui staremo insieme anche molto a dei servizi che purtroppo non possiamo mappare con la stessa precisione. Avanti ancora e vediamo come noi possiamo, il nostro piccolo, con gli organici che abbiamo, i mezzi che abbiamo, l'Italian Trade Agency o ICE, come è conosciuta, o anche Italian Trade Commission, possiamo supportare le imprese nel loro percorso di avvicinamento alle opportunità in Canada. Qui in Canada abbiamo la fortuna di avere 3 punti di presenza, uno in via di apertura a Vancouver, altri 2 consolidati a Toronto e Montreal. Prego la prossima. E naturalmente facciamo parte di un network molto più ampio. Quello che possiamo fare, diciamo, è supportare le imprese nel loro marketing nei modi assolutamente più vari e più diversi, dalla ricerca di partner, di clienti, fino all'organizzazione di eventi autonomi, passando per la partecipazione a fiere e tutta la parte informativa. E quando avrete la presentazione potrete vedere anche direttamente quali sono i servizi, quando non li conosciate, insomma, nel catalogo che appunto è cliccabile. Andiamo avanti e abbiamo comunque, diciamo, abbiamo riscoperto, perché dopo la pausa pandemica, insomma, si può parlare di una riscoperta del settore ambientale, con la partecipazione a Ecomondo a novembre del 2022, in veste di relatore c'ero io che presentavo una ricerca che vedete anche qui linkata e che fa il punto, grazie al lavoro di Echion, un consulente che abbiamo ingaggiato per l'occasione, sulla gestione dei rifiuti. E poi siamo andati a Americana portando alcune imprese a marzo 2023, una fiera di una certa dimensione media a Montreal con una discreta una gamma di opportunità, insomma, presenti lì, e progettiamo di andare a Globe Forum febbraio 24 a Vancouver, di tornare a PIDAC, che è esplorazione di minerali e miniere, qui a Toronto, a marzo del 2024, e forse, ma stiamo ancora valutando, andare a Canadian Waste and Recycling Export a settembre del 2024. Quindi con noi, venendo diciamo insieme a noi a questi eventi, poi ci sarà la possibilità di sostenervi e di avere una moltiplicazione, diciamo, dei vostri contatti, delle opportunità di networking e di affari. Insomma, ecco. Mi sembra che siamo quasi giunti alla fine della mia parte. Qual è la prossima, Paolo? Ok, e quindi lascio la parola a Paolo Benzi, che l'ha detto al nostro osservatorio gare appalti di Montreal. Prego.
Grazie, dottor Marco Saladini da Toronto. Buongiorno a tutti. Opero presso l'ICE Montreal per l'osservatorio gare e appalti, che è una funzione riattivata lo scorso anno dopo il lancio del 2018 ed è un osservatorio nato in merito al contesto del CETA, l'accordo economico tra il Canada e l'Unione Europea. Gli appalti pubblici in Canada hanno una prevalenza importante, leggermente superiore alla media delle OECD. Comunque la frazione della partecipazione pubblica nelle spese di approvvigionamento sono superiore alla media, siamo all'87%, quando in Italia siamo al 77%. Il CETA è appunto un accordo tra il Canada e l'Unione Europea introdotto e siglato nel 2017 e a 5 anni dell'anniversario, diciamo, dall'accordo, le relazioni economiche e commerciali tra i due continenti, quindi tra Canada e l'Unione Europea, si sono rafforzate, e quindi questo accordo ha contribuito ad aumentare gli scambi economici tra i due paesi. In particolare stiamo parlando di Italia e Canada. Ovviamente l'accordo prevede le soglie di applicazione. Per quanto riguarda i beni di consumo o i servizi, siamo a una soglia intorno ai $360.000. Per la costruzione si parla di soglie di $9 milioni canadesi. Ci sono delle esclusioni, su questo nella bibliografia del CETA ci sono dei dettagli maggiori, che comunque riguardano la sicurezza e difesa nazionale, assistenza internazionale, cooperazione e sviluppo, e altre eccezioni come i trasporti, il materiale radiotelevisivo, acquisto di acqua e energia, eccetera. Gli appalti pubblici in Canada sono settorializzati in diversi indirizzi, tra cui oggi faremo un focus su una parte dell'edilizia e una parte del trattamento delle acque. Per darvi un flash delle energie rinnovabili in Canada, abbiamo una frazione enorme, i 2/3 sono su base idroelettrica, quindi perfettamente rinnovabile, un quarto di biomassa solida, e il terzo sono veramente produzioni molto minori. Quindi l'energia rinnovabile in Canada si basa essenzialmente sul settore idroelettrico e biomassa solida. I grandi progetti in Canada sono distribuiti su tutto il territorio, ovviamente per popolazione Ontario, Quebec e British Columbia costituiscono la maggioranza dei residenti. I progetti che prendiamo in carico oggi sono, abbiamo detto, nel campo della costruzione e del trattamento delle acque, e costituiscono, come vediamo in questa proporzione, il 14% della costruzione nei progetti pubblici e quasi il 7% per il trattamento delle acque. Questa è una tabella aggiornata dei primi maggiori progetti in campo di appalti pubblici in Canada, aggiornato alla primavera 2023, quindi vediamo che nei primi 10 classificati in importo, per importo in miliardi di dollari, abbiamo l'energia in particolare e il transit, cioè il trasporto urbano. Sulle acque c'è un grande progetto in British Columbia che importa ha un importo di circa 10 miliardi di dollari, ma ci sono altri progetti minori che seguono la lista dei primi 10. Che cosa fa l'osservatorio gare e appalti? Si occupa principalmente del monitoraggio delle gare d'appalto pubbliche in Canada, di notizie di mercato, di opportunità e di anteprime di grandi progetti. Quello che facciamo è la pubblicazione di queste notizie, anteprime di grandi progetti e segnalazioni di gare internazionali sul sito garappalti.ca, è un sito in italiano dedicato appunto alle comunicazioni dell'osservatorio verso le imprese italiane. Ovviamente le notizie vengono pubblicate anche sul sito dell'ICE.it, sulle notizie della rete, e le gare e le anteprime di progetti vengono rimbalzate su Extender, il sito italiano. Gli appalti pubblici in Canada sono pubblicati da canadabice.canada.ca, che è il sito ufficiale del governo federale con la raccolta di tutti gli appalti pubblici canadesi, e dall'anno scorso hanno integrato anche gli appalti a livello provinciale e municipale. MERS.com è un database importante di riferimento che pubblica una buona parte degli appalti pubblici. Abbiamo un database Tenders Page di cui usufruiamo da circa un anno, che raccoglie oltre 800 database di gare d'appalti in Canada pubblici, federali, provinciali e municipali. E finalmente sul nostro sito possiamo proporre una newsletter al quale vi invitiamo a registrarvi per poter ricevere appunto notizie periodiche nel settore delle gare. I servizi per le aziende italiane, come abbiamo detto, sono il monitoraggio, modalità di partecipazione alle gare ed essendo noi su questo territorio possiamo vivere in prima persona alcuni dettagli importanti per le imprese italiane che volessero parteciparvi. Ora finalmente vi presento i relatori della webinar di oggi. Ne abbiamo 4 esperti nel settore del green building e del trattamento acque, quindi il focus è su questi 2 subsettori del Cleantech. Vi presento Blake Jackson, che è il direttore della sustainability dell'azienda NORC di architettura e ingegneria basata a Toronto. John Casola appartiene alla Canada Infrastructure Bank, è responsabile degli investimenti. Indra Maharian è direttore dell'innovazione dell'Ontario Clean Water Agency, quindi esperto del trattamento delle acque. E finalmente Bob Paul da Vancouver è responsabile e primo consulente dell'azienda E5 Consulting Solution da Vancouver, esperto in Cleantech. Quindi vi troverete nella presentazione che vi faremo avere un breve profilo professionale dei 4 relatori. E finalmente passo la parola a Black per la prima parte della esposizione della presentazione. Prego Black, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Let me share my screen here. Oh, you'll have to stop sharing your screen and then I'll be able to, there we go, perfect.
Thank you so much.
No worries. All right, I believe we're ready to go. So thank you all. I think I followed all of the last presentation. We'll see at the quiz at the end. Thank you for inviting me to talk a little bit about sort of my passion, which is greening of the built environment. And when I was invited here to sort of talk about how do we create a North American market for products made in Italy, I started to think about my own journey with Italian products. And, you know, I went back to when I was 6 years old and I had a Lamborghini poster on my wall. And I think that for better or for worse, that's what North Americans think of when they think of Italian products. They think of beauty, they think of luxury. And I like this image in particular because as a sustainability director, I find that we want beauty and luxury, but we want sustainability too. So my call to you is to provide us with that and the market will follow. So you had an introduction to me earlier. Again, my name is Blake Jackson. I'm an architect and director of sustainability with NOR Architecture and Engineering. I've got about 22, 23 years of experience in the industry, and I've been working dedicated as a sustainability professional for about 17 of those years. NOR is a 840-person company that does architecture, engineering, planning, and interiors across 12 different sectors in North America, as well as in the UK and in the Emirates. And if you can think of a building that you need, we can design and engineer it for you. And with that, we get to bring a lot of experience from various different markets, in particular our global markets, which are pushing sustainability a little bit harder than we are here in North America, but we're starting to play catch up. And when I try to explain what my role is as a sustainability director for a global company, it's really about change agency. So when I first got started in sustainability, it was more about research, conservation, energy efficiency, but it has sprung into this other realm of resiliency and promoting health and well-being and social equity so that we and our clients can leverage their capital expenditures in order to meet their corporate social responsibility or CSR commitments, as well as their environmental and social governance or ESG commitments. And so this role is really about change agency, and we can do that through consumption. I truly believe that. And as we're talking about consumers, the good news for a European market, is that we no longer are experiencing intense climate denialism in North America. I mean, you get pockets of resistance here and there, but we seem to have awakened to the fact that the climate crisis is upon us. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. And suddenly we're being asked to do this catch up, playing this game of catch up very quickly. And we're also being asked to do more work on shorter time periods with less resources and also less fees. So in order to accomplish the level of complexity, which is a sort of a carbon positive society, we need partnerships with various different vendors to help us get there. It's something I'm actually optimistic about talking to a European audience here today, because probably you could educate me on many of the things that you're being required to do as opposed to their voluntary over here. And we also have the alignment with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. And essentially for an architecture company, we're very heavily focused on item number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. Manufacturers may be more focused on number 12, but essentially whatever our business is and whatever our clients' businesses are, we're trying to translate that into basically a hyper focus on number 13, which is climate action. So every step that we take in our business is an opportunity for climate action. And likewise with those partners and vendors that we're working with. And also trying to, as an industry, leverage number 17, which are partnerships greater than just the business units that we are, to try to figure out bigger picture issues within the industry. And so when I talk about the industry in regard to product manufacturers, the biggest change that I've seen over the years is with regard to a promotion of transparency, and also the disclosure of various different ingredients within the chemistry of the products. And transparency is important because it makes us focus on the environmental impacts of a product, from its moment of extraction of raw materials to transportation, manufacturing, packaging, all the way to the point of sale. So everything that we and I say we as manufacturers control along our supply chain. So not just looking at products as a moment in time, but really understanding the implications across the supply chain, and then reporting that to consumers so they can make responsible decisions regarding various different products. The disclosure component on the right-hand side is more with regard to the chemistry and the impacts upon human health. And again, we're not trying to demonize any industry or necessarily any chemistry. The idea is that by giving consumers the information, they will make appropriate choices themselves, and they will send direct signals to the market. And this is something, again, we're playing catch up with in North America, that in Europe have had to deal with these types of constructs for a long time. So I want to share a couple of stories about this just to illustrate why this is important, because beyond the numbers, I think the stories are more important, because the stories lead to change that becomes marketing, that becomes market share. One of my favorite flooring products is a company called Forbo, and their source of raw materials is from the Midwest and the plains in Canada. And it's a bio-based product. It's made from flaxseed husks and flaxseed oil. And we use it in schools. We use it in science and technology facilities, healthcare. It's a very durable and robust and green product. They were early adopters to environmental product declarations and transparency in general, and wanted to get that market share early, about a decade ago. So they started down this journey of doing an environmental product declaration, thinking that their main source of greenhouse gas emissions was going to be their transportation of the products once they were manufactured to a global market. What they actually found out was that it was their biggest greenhouse gas emissions activity was with regard to the harvesting of the flaxseed and then the burn off of the chaff at the end of the season. What happened was the burn off emitted a lot of carbon. It created a nitrogen overload that was run off into streams, and it caused environmental harm throughout various different ecosystems. And so what they did, instead of burning off the chaff at the end of the season, they turned it into a feedstock, because what do they also have in the Midwest and the Western Plains of Canada? They have lots of cattle. So they were able to feed the cattle a local feedstock that was much healthier than what they had been given. They turned this waste stream into a revenue generator that solved an ecological problem, and it also allowed the product to be reduced in its price point to the consumer. So this is a win-win-win. Or better put, not just collecting data on environmental parameters, but actually transforming it into positive good for the consumers as well as for the company. And I'm not on the payroll, so I'm just telling you the stories that I like to talk about. Another great example of disclosure is with regard to this building here in the center. So this is the Bullitt Center in Seattle, Washington. It is a Living Building Challenge certified project as of about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. It's been there for a little while. And the Living Building Challenge is the most stringent third-party rating system in existence, far beyond LEED, far beyond BREEAM, or any other sort of used systems in the matrix or the ecosystem of rating systems. When they were looking at the exterior cladding system here, they found that there weren't any cladding systems that would meet all the code requirements, but that also, and the budget points, but that also avoided the chemicals of concern on their red list. So they went to the manufacturer, the design team, and they had a conversation with them about eliminating chemicals of concern that they wouldn't have been able to have had without the disclosure. And the impact that this project has had is that the manufacturer was able to eliminate those chemicals of concern from that individual product, from the whole line of products that they provided. And now any project, this one and others that specify this material, get the benefit of that disclosure. And so disclosure is really powerful whenever you leverage it for the potential that it has. It's not just about data, it's about figuring out ways to send signals to the market to really refine various different products. So as you can see, we're moving from the data collection point, which is our footprint, and just looking at how do we optimize various different products. And that goes from a whole building down to the individual components that make it, to this notion of handprinting. And the idea of handprinting is that it's the philosophy essentially that there can be good done through the profit generated by goods and services provided. And that's a very different conversation than just focusing on a footprint, which is just reduce, reduce, reduce. It's about how do we transform this good intention into products that sell and tell good stories. One example of that is the Net Effects carpet by Interface Flooring. And what they realized is that they had a difficult time sourcing their raw materials because the raw materials were ending up as single stream waste in various different parts of the world. So through partnerships with various different locations, they were able to identify areas and remote areas in the Philippine Islands where they were having ecological challenges with net pollution and from fishing and overfishing. And what they did was pretty revolutionary. They paid a living wage to these workers in these villages to, instead of overfishing these areas, to collect the nets, to package them, and then to send them to the US so they could be remanufactured as a raw material resource for this various different carpet. And in exchange, they were also, in addition to cleaning up their environment, but they were also paying a living wage to the workers there. So they were making a positive impact where they were located, a positive impact on the environment, and they were able to source raw materials that could become part of their circularity story or their circular economy story. Other sort of disclosure items such as cradle to cradle certification, which you may be a little more familiar with. I like this one just because it doesn't reward you. It looks at holistic measures, so material health, reutilization or circularity, renewables, water stewardship, and social fairness. I grew up in a manufacturing town, so I'm very focused on the social fairness piece of this, and manufacturing is something that often gets lost. And what I like about Cradle to Cradle is it looks holistically at all these different measures. It certifies products based on their worst score, not their best score. So it sends messages so that how manufacturers can continue to gain market share and also to tell their stories, as well as disclose and provide environmental impacts as well. But it basically translates the data into action, which is what we like to see from manufacturers. And one other thing I think about in European products is that they tend to have this level of disclosure and environmental emphasis that other products typically don't. This is just a quick look at a summary of all these various different drivers for products. So I used to work at a company called Cleantech, which is 29,000 people. It's also headquartered in Canada. And we had offices all over the world. We had an office in Rome, more stories about that later, but we created this document so that any office with an interior design specialty could leverage this knowledge in order to help them make determinations on which products in our library made it into their specifications. A lot of this was driven by third-party certifications, which are very big in North America. And whether we pursue the certifications or not, they still generally drive code. They drive compliance with government standards. It's a really good way to gain a leg up in market share, regardless of the certification numbers. They're being used all the time. Now, what they try to do is they try to focus us on a series of different eco labels to avoid greenwashing. So there are thousands of eco labels out there, and a lot of it is just marketing. And so the trusted eco labels and the third-party certification systems are the ones that we tend to focus on, just to help us minimize the complexity. And as I said, there are thousands of these things. So we look specifically for this list right here, and I'm happy to make the presentation in the interest of time available to the audience if they want afterwards and can look at this in a little bit more detail. But as you can see, the list here, the benefits are generally myriad. So not just one, it's not just transparency or disclosure, but the better products have both plus something else. So we're always juggling the decision-making complexity because we have to meet availability, budget, schedule, fire code, durability, maintenance. And we generally don't specify proprietary products. Generally, we are looking for 3 to 5 equal alternatives. So it's not a given, even if you do all these wonderful things, that it makes it into the projects, but it gives you at least a shot, at least a 20% chance, if not greater. And we've been able to do this with coffee. And I think we can do it with building products and even buildings. The fact that if I'm drinking my coffee, I know that my money was spent making the world a better place. And I think we can have that same for the products. And so I hope that our next conversation with our team at NOR and you, when you come to visit or come to call upon us, it will be a conversation about transparency, disclosure, handprinting, etc. So with that, I think I've stayed within the time. I don't know if we have questions directly after or we wait to the end, but I encourage you all to keep in touch, and I wish you all the best of luck on creating that market share in Canada and across North America. Thank you.
Mood. So thank you so much, Blake, and yeah, amazing presentation. So it's quite difficult to stay in 10 minutes and to give all the information, but we share with everybody your contact, your full contact. So all the company connect and not connect, they will be able to reach you for any question. And we try with this kind of webinar to improve the connection between Italian firms and potential supplier and Canadian project. So thank you so much, Blake. And John, everything good?
Yes, I'm just going to.
Okay, John Casola from Canada Infrastructure Bank. Thank you so much.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Buongiorno a tutti. Excuse me.
That's not wine, eh? Not wine.
Un po' presto for that. Excuse me. Thank you for inviting me, Marco and Paolo. I had the privilege of speaking at one of your early webinars where we just gave a high-level overview of what we're doing in the building retrofit space. I'm the Chief Investment Officer at the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Canada Infrastructure Bank was created by the federal government and seeded with $35 billion to invest in predefined sectors. I'll get to what those are in a minute, but the emphasis is very much on green and sustainable. And so, Blake, I loved your prep. We haven't met before, but I loved your presentation and your emphasis on sustainable, because you'll see most of what we do. We have by the end of March, which is the end of our fiscal year, we had closed about 45 financial transactions and committed involving about $10 billion Canadian. Of CIB money, and the vast majority of those projects is in green and clean. And so, like Blake, you know, one of the things I like to talk about is what a privilege it is for me to be in this role, because I have a personal view that there's too many people around the world talking about doing the right thing and not enough people actually doing anything about it. and I get the privilege of going to work every day and actually making a difference, putting money, our money, Canadians' money, where our mouth is, and trying to elicit change. So the second thing I want to say about Blake's presentation is I have a slide inadequacy feelings now, because mine's very 1990s compared to the brilliant slides you had. So anyway, I'll do the best with what I have in the time I'm allotted. Again, just a little bit more on the CIB value proposition. We are an impact investor, so that's what we focus on. Our mandate from the federal government is to make an impact, and making an impact means reducing GHG emissions. It means causing modal shift and getting people to take more energy efficient, climate friendly modes of transportation. It means connecting underserved communities to high-speed broadband so they can participate in the modern economy and take advantage of healthcare and education and all of those things. So we are partner to governments, Indigenous communities, and private institutional investors. Couple of things that are really key to us. We don't make grants, so we only make investments, and that is we can play anywhere in the capital structure. So we can be equity in projects, and most of what we do is loans. And we can be anywhere in the capital structure. As I say, we can be senior debt or subordinated debt. The other really important piece is we cannot be in a project. We cannot invest in a project if it doesn't have an adequate amount of private sector capital alongside us. The whole impetus of the bank when it was created is that neither the governments or the private sector can solve the challenges, the climate challenges that we have in this country around infrastructure, and so together we stand a fighting chance, and it's our job to eliminate just enough of the risk or fill the gaps that we see in really good positive projects to allow for private capital who have a much lower risk profile appetite than we do to join us in the projects. So I sit atop a team of about 55 investment professionals here. We're headquartered in Toronto, but we have 2 satellite offices, one in Montreal. We have a team of about 10 people in Montreal and a team of about 7 people in Calgary. Here are the priority sectors that we deal in, and you'll see public transit, 5 billion, clean power, and that means generation, transmission. It means storage. We're involved in a lot of those things. In clean power, we have been heavily in one of the big projects that is in the news and that our involvement in is public is trying to really solve the issue in Atlantic Canada around getting them off coal and greening their grids and generating clean power. That's a project called the Atlantic Loop. It involves bringing Quebec and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia together along with the federal government, and it is such an important project, but also the poster child for herding cats, as we like to say here, which is difficult to corral all the parties that have various interests, their own quite legitimate interests, but trying to get them all on the same page to achieve that very important end. Green infrastructure is what we'll talk a little bit more today, and it involves big ticket carbon capture we're getting into, and low carbon fuels development, but also involves our energy efficiency retrofits program for buildings. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, which is key to today, and water and wastewater infrastructure. And we also just launched and announced our first investment in zero emission vehicle charging, and so that's very exciting. Also in trade and transportation, at the end you'll see I jumped one because we're trying to play up and down the supply chain line. So we're also getting involved in critical minerals, in the mining of critical minerals to try and extract those minerals to feed the supply chain that produces the batteries that will allow for charging. It is again like the poster child for chicken and egg when it comes to that. And so we have the ability to be long-term patient capital, take the ramp up risk, wait to be repaid until utilization starts to go. You can't get that kind of structure, that kind of money in the private sector. So we play a really interesting role there. The targets, I'll just say a word on the targets. The 10 billion under clean power and the green infrastructure 10 billion, those used to say $5 billion each until the federal budget in April, which changed those to 10. it didn't really make a change. We were headed that way anyway in terms of the projects that we were doing, but the federal government also announced that we are the Canada Infrastructure Bank is their primary tool for really dealing with subsidizing, assisting with the build out of clean power in this country. So what's our building retrofits initiative in a nutshell? It takes existing buildings and tries to clean them up. Buildings in this country, I'm not sure how much they contribute to GHG emissions in Italy or the rest of Europe. In this country, depending on how you measure it, it's just slightly under 20%. The last number I saw was around 18. It is an enormous amount. And to put that into context, the oil sands in Canada, which is the single largest emitter of GHG emissions, is about 28%. So it is an enormous amount of emissions that we are trying to do our small part to try and tame. And so we work with public sector and private sector real estate owners and other market participants to try and modernize and improve building efficiency of existing buildings. We provide, as you'll see in a minute, lower cost financing and patient capital to try to accelerate work and improvements on buildings to try and lower their footprints. So the initiative summary is on the screen, and I know Paolo will distribute these slides afterwards. I won't go through every one of these things, but I think what's important to note, just a couple of things, is we need a minimum of $25 million CIB investment opportunity. And the other thing that's really important is 30%, we need a minimum of 30% reduction in the GHG emissions to qualify. And one of the things we've done, which I love about this program, is that we have structured our pricing on our debt to how deep the retrofit goes. So if you only achieve 30%, you get something like Government of Canada bond rate plus 100 basis points. If you achieve 40%, you get money at Government of Canada rate. And if you achieve 50% plus, you actually get Government of Canada minus 100 basis points. So it's quite competitive, and it also has a more favorable repayment profile as well. We're really trying to structure the loans to incentivize the greatest possible outcomes. Actually, one more thing before we move on to a specific project. The way we're attacking the market, particularly in the private sector, is to lend to two different groups. One are building owners. So if there's a portfolio of buildings that they have, the REITs, the real estate investment trusts, as we call them here in Canada, REITs, are large property owners, and we've done our marquee deal with Dream REIT. We've done one now that's announced with Avenue Living, and so we provide facilities for those to do their buildings. The other way we're doing it is to encourage the use of aggregators in this country, and those are the market participants in green buildings like the Johnson Controls of the world and Amoresco's, and there's a one we've done in Quebec called Sofiac, which is a new energy services company which has investment from the Labor Fund in Quebec and seeded by the government of Quebec as well. And what we do for those is we provide them a facility of, say, $100 million, and then they go out and actually get the clients that meet our criteria. So they're helping to do the work, and that allows us to do buildings that are sub $25 million and kind of outsources the administration of that to those aggregators and makes for a much more efficient deployment of our funds. Paolo asked me to talk about two specific deals which we've announced recently. One is in the building space, and one is in the wastewater space, which I'll talk about in a minute. The first one is in the building space, and it's called Noventa Energy Partners. We announced this deal just a couple of weeks ago. So as you'll see, for those of you who don't know, Noventa is a Toronto-based energy services renewable company. And it was founded by a gentleman named Dennis Fotinos. Dennis is the founder of and CEO of Enwave, which is a direct I'm blanking. It provides underwater deep lake cooling for district energy is what I want to say. District energy, underwater cooling for buildings, highly efficient, highly environmentally friendly, and started Lift there to start this company with a patented technology that comes originally from Germany. And what they did was they looked at and it basically provides, it takes energy from wastewater. So it taps into the wastewater in big cities, and actually through their patented technology converts that to energy. So it's used for heating and cooling. We did an actual deal with them, which we had closed already with Toronto Western Hospital. And they liked it so much, and the experience was so good, and that's under construction now, that they came back to us and said, we have several more clients. We'd like to talk to you about a facility where we could tap into your money. And so they did that, and we've actually now closed on this facility, which is $100 million for Noventa. And they have come to us with a list of projects that they have signed memorandums of understanding on. And mostly those are in the public sector, what we call sometimes the MUSH sector here: municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. And they include hospitals, universities, and other public spaces. But that is a tremendous aggregation vehicle that we're very proud of. And you'll see we're kind of technology agnostic. This is a proprietary technology that's different than district energy, that might be different than some other types of retrofits. As long as it's proven and it works, we are less concerned about the how and more concerned about the what, as I like to say, and focus on achieving those energy savings. So that's Noventa. I want to talk a little bit about wastewater. Wastewater in this country is a huge need, and we are frankly struggling with how to attack that and tackle it in a meaningful way. Couple of the reasons for it being a difficult nut to crack is that there are many small municipalities throughout this country, and their capital needs are for much more modest size projects, and we just don't have the capability to do $20 million projects across the country. But even more than that, our requirement for private capital in these projects makes it quite difficult, because many of these wastewater facilities are municipally owned, and at least in this country, and I'm not sure if it plays the same in Europe. In this country, there is a generally negative reaction for historical and other reasons to having the private sector run water assets or own water assets. It's the whole privatization thing, and I'm not going to get into whether that's right or wrong. It just is. I think for anybody in the game, they need to recognize that that's what we're dealing with. So we're working very hard right now behind the scenes to come up with structures, which we're quite close to rolling out, which we think addresses those two things, because it's not an area we can avoid. We can't just say, well, it's challenging and it doesn't work, so we're not going to do it. We have to do it, and we must crack the nut. So we're trying to be innovative and creative. One of the areas we have been able to do it in is in the Indigenous infrastructure space. That's one of our key focuses in this country. Indigenous reconciliation, Indigenous economic empowerment is all really important. So we're trying to do that. And so Grasswoods is a wastewater treatment facility we've done. It's in northern Saskatchewan. We've also done another one called Port Stalachan in New Brunswick, and those provide wastewater services to Indigenous communities. The reason we were able to crack those, not just because Indigenous equity counts as private equity, and we also have different rules for Indigenous projects, where instead of a general minimum threshold of about $100 million for Indigenous projects, it's down to about $5 million, recognizing that Indigenous communities are often small, remote, and it would be difficult to make an impact if we stuck to that. So I won't go over all of it. You'll have the slide in the interest of time. I will leave it there. Hopefully a little bit of whetting your appetite about what we do and who we are. I would be very pleased to continue the conversation with anyone that wants to on these two topics or anything else that's in our remit. And the last thing I'll say is we are focused on building infrastructure in this country. And one of the things that this will matter to all of your listeners today, we do not have a mandate to favor Canadian companies or to favor Canadian technologies. Our goal is on the infrastructure. And so we welcome good ideas and positive impact from wherever it comes in the world. And we'll be happy to work with you. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your contribution. Very interesting, the two projects, even the retrofit and the wastewater. And we try to support the Canada Infrastructure Bank in the connection with the Italian firms, potential supplier. Then is the turn of Indra. Indra, can you hear me? So I share your presentation.
Thanks, Paulo, and thanks, John, for ending with the wastewater discussion. And I 100% agree with you. The status of the condition of wastewater infrastructure in Canada, and we work in Ontario, so I can speak for Ontario. There's a huge capital need to maintain this infrastructure, and I'm going to cover in my slides some of those. And as we upgrade and expand this infrastructure, the need of innovative solutions is critical. And I think a lot of attendees today will be interested in that, because we look at, similar to CIB, Aqua, Ontario Clean Water Agency, we are a Crown corporation under Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. However, we don't get any funding from government. We operate on a cost recovery model. We have multi-year operating contracts with almost 200 plus municipalities in Ontario. In Ontario, there's about 444 municipalities. Like John said, that's why wastewater system is very complex, because a lot of them are owned by smaller municipalities who doesn't have a capacity to engage into discussions beyond day-to-day operations. So we are operating authority by mandate from the government, and we have about 700 wastewater systems. So I'm going to talk about how we have been driving, adoption of innovative technologies through collaboration. And similar to what John said, we are very technology agnostic. We work with cross-boundary, provincial boundary, and national boundaries to collaborate and bring in the new solutions for the benefits of ratepayers here. Next slide, Paul. So we are the largest wastewater operator in Canada. However, because we are owned by the province, we only operate within the province of Ontario today. We serve about 4.5 million Ontarians, and we manage about $20 billion of assets in municipal infrastructure. As you can see, we have a total of about 700 plus wastewater facilities. We have some really large ones down here in Southern Ontario, like region of Peel, region of Waterloo. We operate most of the large water systems across Ontario, but we have also very, very small systems, and including 40 First Nations communities. Interestingly, we are also considered as an emergency backstop in case of any water emergency in this province by the mandate of the government. So what does that mean is there's another 400 systems that we don't operate. And if there's any crisis around those systems, we have a response team that get pulled into to take over those systems, to support with those systems and whatnot. So we have a really unique business model for ourselves here. Next. Now, in terms of the innovation and collaboration, what we look at is, so we are about 1,100 people company, and as you can anticipate, majority of our team, our operations scatter around Ontario. Now, if some of you haven't sensed how big Ontario is really huge. From Southern Ontario, where I work, our furthest facility is about 28 hours drive. And in Northern Ontario, between two facilities, you have to drive like 3 to 4 hours between one plant to another plant. So it's really big. So our people are all over the province, and that's why there's a very much diverse between systems, between the purchasing power of these systems, between the treatment size and capacity of these systems. And that's why we have a huge range of solutions that we need. And hence we focus a lot on collaboration. We don't try to do it all ourselves. We work with our partners, similar to CIB and other partners, and make these projects happen. So our aim has been is how do we look at these new solutions so that we can foster resiliency in these water wastewater systems. A lot of our systems are old, built in 1970s. So as you can imagine, it's the technologies are outdated, and the assets, physical assets itself, are kind of needing an investment. So there's a huge investment. I think there's about $6 billion price that has been estimated by FCM and other agencies, while the need in water wastewater sector. So my group primarily focuses on how do we bring in these solutions. So my group is responsible for finding the solutions, see it, try it, do it, and then share it kind of model. So I borrowed this from the LIFT program down in US, and we basically adopt this model, working with different partners to figure out this cycle. Next. Now, to align our strategic directions, what we have been focusing is in these three pillars. One is more around, I think Blake touched about organics, biosolids, and resource recovery. So we also have an initiative around that, where we are in a mission to transform our water wastewater facilities into net zero energy facilities to start with, and then further down the road, net zero carbon. So what does that mean is we look at the technologies that helps us not just to treat our water or wastewater, but also to recover the resources that is within these systems. So primarily energy, obviously, then heat, then phosphorus, nitrogen, all those resources. And then we also have as you know, wastewater produces biosolids. So traditionally, biosolids has been going to landfill, and in last 5 years, we have started to move away from that. Biosolids can be converted into fertilizer, should be converted into fertilizer, and there's a huge opportunity of resource recovery. So we are focusing on a lot of technologies around helping enhance the biosolids from liquid biosolids to more cake, more pelletizer, or more fertilizer kind of. And as I mentioned, a lot of our wastewater systems are very small. So a lot of them are lagoons, right? And lagoons are not non-mechanical systems. So it's a big pond where you just put the effluent for many number of weeks and you discharge. But however, a lot of these municipalities are growing, especially along the corridor of East-West Highway 401. It's growing. And a lot of these systems can't handle the growth. And as you know, if you don't have a wastewater capacity, you can't permit the growth. So we are in a very crux of the moment where our provincial government is addressing the huge need of growth in this province. However, the water wastewater systems are becoming a huge barrier to achieve those growth. So these all municipalities are looking on a quick way how to increase this capacity. So since the last 2 years, we have been focusing on intensification solutions. What does that mean is, yeah, you can go and build a mechanical plant, but it's going to take 5-7 years. And to John's point, it's going to also cost $35 million to build. So what are you going to do for that 5-7 years? Is there any technologies that I can put in an existing infrastructure at a cost of $1 million, $2 million that can be done in 6, 7, 8 months and give me 10%, 20%, 30% treatment capacity? So we're not trying to expand the infrastructure per se, but we are looking at the solutions. And we have a list of about 20 different projects where we are looking at different solutions which can work. And a lot of times when we do these projects, we want to do it as a pay-for-performance model. Because a lot of these, John alluded to that, a lot of these small municipalities doesn't have a capital. So they are willing to collaborate. They have some capital, not all. So, and then there's also, a little bit of concern about, is this technology going to work? So how do we address the barrier, right? As a solution provider, we identify the barriers, we want to address it. So I usually, want to work with pay for performance, and we have multiple projects where we are doing a pay for performance model, where everybody is sharing the risks, everybody is sharing the reward. And once everything is worked, then we all recover the money, we all achieve our objectives. So we are focusing on lagoon infrastructures. Out of those 700 systems, we have about 89 lagoons, and those are the key business opportunities down the road. Now, the other pillar we look at is innovation and strategic partnerships, where we support technology providers to demonstrate their technological performance in this province by working with the technology providers, by helping you go through the regulatory process, by helping you find the host systems, and then leading to a commercial deployment. Now, again, the disclaimer here is because we are a Crown corporation, we don't support you in your business development, neither the sales activity, but we will help you prove your technology here in a system that needs your solution. And our belief is that if there's a real problem and your solution solves that problem, it should create a pathway to a full-scale adoption. We also work with a lot of academic partners to support on emerging issues, whether it's R&D, whether it's, again, validation of technological solutions, or even working with the regulatory where the regulations should be headed kind of thing. So we have a lot of projects that we work around that topic. Now, the biggest other initiative we have currently ongoing, which is in a mature stage, is energy and greenhouse gas services. We do a lot of energy efficiency projects. Just in the last 5 years, we have already completed more than 300 projects, totaling a value of almost $50 million. Obviously, to John's point, these are really small projects. So, it's really hassle. A lot of work goes into this, but the impact is huge. And we also currently have about 7, we call it co-digestion projects, where we are trying to bring in food organics into the anaerobic digester wastewater plant so that we can increase the biogas production, converting into either electricity, renewable natural gas, compressed natural gas, and something like that. We call it energy recovery projects. So each of these projects are about $30 to $40 million. And then we have about 7 projects in different stages of development. One is starting construction soon. And then we also support a lot of these municipalities on reporting strategic plans and all these developments, because we believe that these municipalities should focus on program approach, not project approach, right? So it should be a goal of achieving certain goals, and then projects will fit under that. While we do all of these, as we said, a lot of these small, medium municipality doesn't have financial tools. So one of the largest activity my team does is supporting with funding. We explore, we canvas, we work with a lot of funders across the country. Even we have worked with international funding agencies. Like we recently did a project with Dutch government. We got the Dutch funding to actually bring in a Dutch technology in Ontario, build a pilot unit, and demonstrate the pilot unit. And now there's a couple of huge interest in that technology in Ontario. So we have done that. Wherever the funding is available, we'll work with that. And then in last 4 years, we were able to secure almost $40 million funding, which is a combination of loan and grants to initiate these multiple projects. Next. So these are just some examples of demonstration projects we have done. As you can see, there's a lot of solutions available. So based on the problem we have or the need of the systems, we have divided these solutions into data analytics and sensors, emerging issues like phosphorus, nitrogen, ammonia removals, disruptive treatment technologies, which enhances that intensification usually, and then we have lagoons focus. So, if you have solutions within these 4 compartments, let us know. We'll talk with you. We'll explore opportunities with you. But if you don't have within these and different ones, let us know either. So as you can see, we have done some amazing works, and I'm proud of my team and my organization. So under the disruptive treatment technology, we were able to do a second North American installation in one of the plants with the MABR technology. And because we started this project, now there's 3 more projects happening. The IFIRA digester project is the one that I was mentioning about the Dutch technology. We have other projects that we did in lagoons where we did performance-based projects. So so this is just a list. Again, there's a lot of other elaborate lists, and you can also find a lot of information about what we do in our website in annual report, Aqua's annual report. Next. Yeah, last is that we always explore partnerships and collaboration. As I said, we are very open. I am personally very interested to share what's here. I try to be accessible as much as I can, and let's chat and let's explore. Thank you.
Thank you, Indra, for your precious contribution. And of course, we have Bob Paul from Vancouver. And I repeat, all the content about the panelists will be shared just after the webinar. So, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. Just
May you share? Okay, thanks.
okay. All right. So thank you for inviting me to speak, and great presentations from the panelists, and hopefully there's going to be some overlap, some things that I have in my presentation that have been touched on. So I'll try to go through so we have a lot of time for discussion and dialogue. So there's a bit of an overview I'm going to cover. I won't go through it. You can have a quick look and we'll get right into it here. Just an overview of Canada, and this is obviously our 10 provinces and 3 territories. Most of the population is along the 49th parallel, from Victoria all the way out to Eastern Canada. Toronto's a little bit below the 49th parallel, but that's where most of Canada's population resides and where the opportunity for the built environment is in wastewater and buildings for the webinar today. So just this story of world emissions, this is sort of to give you an idea of our emission profile around the world, where we need to tackle our carbon emissions in all kinds of sectors, from transportation to buildings and wastewater, you name it. And this is just to give you a high level image. And breaking it down a little bit, this is where we see sectors where CO2 needs to be tackled. And in buildings, it's about 13% of the equation. Landfills and wastewater treatment plants in municipal areas is embedded likely in heavy industry. It's not profiled separately here, but I don't have a percentage, but there's an opportunity there to tackle that carbon drawdown. So why are we in this game? Well, this is a graphic to show you our 9 planetary boundaries, and you can see in this graphic where the boundaries are being compromised in the yellow to orange range. So particularly I want to focus on the linkage here where we're seeing biochemical releases into the environment, nitrogen, phosphorus relating to wastewater, which we need to do a better job in trying to do resource recovery of nutrients and not let them release into the environment to cause environmental problems. This is Canada's image of their focus areas globally, but also they're relevant internally into Canada. And I think the policy is there around environment and climate change. We talked about partnerships, but there's the business-to-business partnerships, but there's also the government-to-government partnerships. So Italian Trade Agency and Government of Canada, those kind of partnerships need to be explored further. How do we increase investments to help with the environment and climate change? So the innovation ecosystem is there. We have that from startups all the way to commercialization, but there are challenges along the way that need to be navigated, but we do have that pathway there now. And investments are being made, so venture capital and all the way to government funding to support. So you can see the priorities showing waste management and water treatment. So that's wastewater is in there, as well as energy efficiency, links to buildings, and renewable energy is mentioned, which crosses both of those areas. This is the Canada-European Trade Agreement. It's not fully ratified, but it started off back in September of 2017, and we are following the spirit of the agreement to look at collaborations. And I think the opportunity there is to let local governments know that this agreement exists. And so it's an opportunity for innovation and investment from outside Canada to come in buildings and wastewater to make these kind of investments. So there's some more work to be done there, in my view, to enhance the spirit of this agreement. And Canada Infrastructure Bank priorities. This is just their 5, and you can see green infrastructure, energy efficient buildings is there, retrofits, wastewater treatment, and water is in there, and I mentioned renewable energy. So this is where we see the overlap and from different agencies connecting in onto climate and environment priorities. It's just a snapshot of treatment in Canada. There is a lot of opportunity with our wastewater treatment facilities because they are old, need to be upgraded and optimized, and integration of new technologies. You can have a look at this in more detail after. Here's the regulations. It's under the Fisheries Act, but the 3 key parts of the regulation is effluent quality standards, effluent monitoring and reporting, and record keeping. Record keeping and monitoring and reporting are key areas, I believe, for IT to get involved in meeting compliance standards. So there's a huge opportunity to integrate that aspect into wastewater. So the supply chain opportunities in wastewater obviously can range all the way from toilet to treatment. So suppliers that provide fixtures in our homes and all the way in between to the infrastructure, right to treatment. There's a whole wide spectrum, and that's why it's billions and billions of dollars. I want to highlight this, and I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but Metro Vancouver has this innovation center, the Annis Island Research Center, with federal government funding and provincial government funding in BC. And this is a place to do advanced innovation with wastewater. You can tap into different supply lines from the treatment process and play around, whether it's dealing with biosolids or trying to do work with nutrient water recovery for fertilizers, or even using nutrient water to get into really advanced things like growing microalgae through fermentation, and then pathways that go beyond to fuels and products from there. So, relating to housing, this is a huge area. We need to fill it, and I just want to point out the opportunity in housing is not only to upgrade current housing infrastructure, but to supply more rapid housing for the need across the country. And modular is the key thing. So for the architectural world to design modular, we're seeing a lot of interest from outside coming into Canada with modularity. And I think this is the place to be in for helping solve the housing issues in Canada. We also have a supply chain issue with not only materials, but in the labor force from basically building basic homes. This is just give you a snapshot. So we have an opportunity to fix these things, as well as the supply chain of material inputs in our homes, all the way to furniture. And in both areas, the opportunity to improve housing and wastewater, as I mentioned, is modularity, energy efficiency, net zero, all this stuff that's been touched up. In wastewater, I just want to say optimization for me is huge. Integrated resource recovery and solving the problem in remote communities with more infrastructure for wastewater. I think we need to look at small scale modularized systems that can solve some of these problems. There are some funding programs that we have in Canada. Invest Canada also has additional programs, so you can have a look at that. As far as news, I've looked at Renew Canada. This is a website that announces projects in wastewater and buildings and other infrastructure. So if you're curious about what's going on, this is a great place to get information. And about E5 solutions, well, Paolo asked me, what did the 5 E's mean? Well, the E's are basically, I look at integrated systems and try to do my thinking that way. So the E's are environment, economy, and then bridged with lots of education. And in the corporate side of things, the other E's relate to efficiency and effectiveness. So when we tie this all together, we have essentially a complete picture of doing things. And For me, I'm here to help as a consultant, a strong environmental background from government, and developing, product integration into the marketplace, partnerships, helping with procurement, conceptualizing projects, and if you need funding assistance, can look at that too. And that's me, and thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to Paolo.
Thank you, Bob. Everything good. Thank you for your presentation. So finally, we complete this webinar with the 4 panelists, and we wish to thank everybody, Bob, John, Indra, and Blake, for their contribution. So we are proud to collaborate with you and maybe to develop more opportunities in the next future, especially for the Italian potential supplier. So thank you, everybody. I leave the last word to Mr. Saladini from Toronto. Marco?
Sure. What a fantastic team that we gathered today. I mean, I'm really pleased and excited for the developments that we can create, provided that our Italian companies and solution providers come and engage, and we're ready to support them. So thanks again. I don't want to drag it too long. We went 15 minutes longer than we expected, but I think it was really worth it. Have a great day, and please let's keep in touch on both sides. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody, and stay tuned from Italy, and visit our garappalti.ca to find out this presentation and the recording of this webinar. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.